for joining us. This is the breakout session, How to Partner with Professional Teams. I'll be the moderator of this breakout session. My name is Ryan Kaufman. I'm a sports talk show host here locally in Colorado Springs on Extra Sports 1300. But more importantly, let's meet our panelists. First of all, to my left, he is the Director of External Affairs and Strategic Initiatives for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Metropolitan Baltimore, Andre Fountain. The Programs and Communications Manager for the Denver Broncos, Jordyn Johnson, joining us. Got an AFC rivalry going on between Andre and Jordyn. And then the CEO of RCX Sports, Izell, Reese, joining us. He played a little bit of ball in his time as well. All right, so obviously this is as much about you guys as it is about us. So if you have a question for our Q&A session towards the end of this, make sure that you download the app breakout, add this breakout session to your app, and you'll be able to submit questions, which I will pose to our fine panel here in just a little bit. But to get to know these three people a little bit better and also talk about what is possible when you partner with professional teams, let's start with you, Andre, a major project going on with the Baltimore Ravens that tell us a little bit about your success story.
Yes, thanks, Ryan. And good morning, everyone. So happy to be here at the Project Play Summit, celebrating 10 awesome years. Can't wait for the next 10 years of what this organization is going to do and take youth sports to the next level. But in relation to the great work that the Boys and Girls Club of Metro Baltimore is doing with the Baltimore Ravens, they have been very generous, and they have donated $20 million to our organization to transform a rec center to become the Baltimore Ravens Boys and Girls Club at Hilton Recreation Center. This is a rec center that is located in West Baltimore, and we can't be, we are so excited, and we are so thrilled for what is going to come. Some of the things that we're going to add to this particular club is we're going to add a gym. Currently, right now, the facility does not have a gym. We also will transform the outdoor green space area to be a multi-sport turf field. And the only athletic structure that's on the site currently is the outdoor basketball court. So that will still be there once construction starts in a couple months or so. We're so actively fundraising, but we definitely appreciate the generosity of the Ravens. This has also been a collective impact approach as well. We're partnering with Recreation and Parks. They actually own the building, and we have signed a lease agreement with Recreation and Parks in Baltimore City for 15 years with 3 5-year options. We've also are going to partner with Green Street Academy, which is a local public charter school that serves kids from ages 6 to 12th grade. The school is in walking distance to the actual club itself, where we're going to create this club. And what's interesting about this partnership with them is that they do not have a home field for their football team. So they'll be able to use our turf field once it's complete to have access to the field. Think about how exciting that's going to be, impactful that's going to be for those young people, where they're going to be able to actually have a home game and have their classmates cheer them on, have people from the community come out and cheer them on. And then another partner in this project is Level 82, which is an organization that's founded by a former Ravens player, Torrey Smith, and his wife, Chanel Smith. They were actually the first entity that got this started. Because of their investment into the community of Baltimore, they partnered with Rec and Parks to reopen up this rec center that was closed back in 2008, reopened in 2021, and they have been doing great programming from a youth development standpoint and sports offerings in the after-school time and summer time for those students that they serve. And we're just taking the project to the next level, and we're happy that we're a part of it.
Yeah, that old saying, it takes a village, right? It certainly does to pull off an amazing project like that. Thank you for sharing, Andre. Let's, Jordyn, talk to you a little bit about what you have done with the Denver Broncos. I know you've done a lot with young girls in the Denver community with cheerleading camps, and you even did some stuff over the COVID as things allowed. So talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, so I run the Junior Denver Broncos Cheerleaders, which is an 8-month program that serves 625 young girls between the ages of 6 to 12. While they get to learn choreography and dance and perform on the field, all kinds of fields, the Rockies field on July 28th, and hopefully the Broncos halftime sometime this year. But really taking the opportunity to have all of them in one space and really talk to them about empowerment and enriching them in what those soft skills are that kids tend to learn in sports. So teamwork, we have a value every time we meet, and it may be spirit, it may be cheer, and just really defining what that means to each of them, and then also to the Broncos and the Denver Broncos cheerleaders who are our instructors as well.
Very, very cool. And Izell, let's talk about RCX. You obviously played in the NFL, and now you are helping connect NFL teams and teams across all major professional sports with youth programs. Talk about what you guys do at RCX.
Yeah, very unique and phenomenal opportunity, especially after being a player and having an opportunity to work with youth through sport on behalf of NFL and several other pro sports organizations. But essentially what we do, we serve as operating partner for the NFL, NBA, NHL, and Major League Baseball. And so among those are events, camps, and a lot of very unique league models, NFL flag being a familiar one, that we oversee will touch about 750,000 kids this year through NFL flag nationwide, and we've expanded that globally. In November of last year, we launched Junior NBA Leagues for both NBA and WNBA. Again, league-based models, if you will. And NHL Street Hockey, which is really cool, and an extension reminds me of flag. You got flag and tackle, so it's still hockey at the end of the day. You can play it anywhere, and it allows us to be able to bring it to any and every community, if you will. And then Major League Baseball, so two long-standing programs in pitch hit and run and junior homer and derby, which some of you may be familiar with. We're now the operating partner of that as well. And so looking at all of that, our mantra now is come play with the pros, and giving all those kids those opportunities to be able to do so, and giving us the opportunity to go anywhere and everywhere. And what we mean by that, we work with Boys and Girls Clubs, YMCAs, Parks and Recs, churches, for-profits, non, as long as the premise of what those pro sports are wanting to see, and a better value proposition for kids to be able to play in sport, accessibility, affordability, and creating models so all kids get the opportunity to play.
Awesome. So as you can tell, 3 different kind of touch points when it comes to partnering with professional teams. I want to ask, obviously, 2020 is a unique point in our country's history and the world's history. I'm curious, from each of your angles, how has this process of partnering with teams, or do you find that teams, and Jordyn, I guess you could speak to this, the willingness of a team to be able to reach out? Do you feel like there has been a concerted effort from teams to try to engage more with the community post the COVID pandemic?
Yeah, I think teams, especially during the pandemic, and I was with the Ravens during the pandemic, but at that time we were really looking at ways to reach those kids. They were all in a virtual space, and really the only big entity that they had contact with at the time was their school. So at that point in time, we worked with school districts to try and place ourselves in their virtual school space to bring a brain break to their day, whether that was recording, a 5-minute workout with our mascot Poe at the time, or just being part of their day-to-day activities, but really using kind of those entities that they were already working with to kind of get in front of them.
Wow. And Andre, this big project that you're doing, how close to 2020 did all of this kind of start? And from your perspective, how much, I don't want to say easier, but how much different is it to work with a professional organization like the Ravens?
Yeah, so the Ravens are a great organization to work with. They get it. They're in the community, and they are stewards of the community. And I was talking with Jordyn in the back, and she actually was telling me that this was in the works back in 2019 before I even was a part of the Boys and Girls Club. I'm 7 months into the Boys and Girls Club, so that shows that The Ravens were doing their homework, they were doing their research and assessing how they can make a deeper impact in the community. And I think that a lot of organizations do that, especially the Denver Broncos. I had the opportunity to come out here in Denver to check out the Denver Broncos Boys and Girls Club that they have to learn. We're not the only organization that's partnered with the NFL team to this level. So there's a lot of great synergy in the ecosystem as you think about Boys and Girls Club in relation to professional sports teams. So this definitely didn't happen overnight. Definitely took some time to cultivate meaningful relationship for us to show our value to the Ravens.
And from your perspective, you kind of act as an intermediary, I think, between the two entities. How much has things changed for you in the last few years?
I think, you mentioned 2020 and when things hit. I think for us, youth sports had shut down. So that gave us an opportunity to cultivate these relationships with teams. Pick your pro sport that we work with in an effort I saw that as an opportunity to build those relationships. So when kids were able to get back out, we could be that support group and work alongside them. And speaking of the Broncos, we were just talking backstage about an event we did in Mexico during the draft. And so we were able to go down there in Mexico. And so now that NFL teams are starting to expand globally, so it's in the U.S. as well as globally. But it's been a phenomenal relationship and being able to do that to service groups like in the audience, because they wear a lot of hats within a professional sport. And at the end of the day, they're there to win games, but they're adamant about kids playing their respective sport. And they need support groups and to connect those dots and be able to help. And so I'm honored that we're in a position to be able to do so, to work alongside those teams. But I think what I've seen thus far is a heightened focus to get more kids playing. It had its challenges before 2020, but even more so now. I have to say just firsthand, across every sport, across every team, across its players, you've seen more of a hyper focus of getting more kids out there to play, working with girls who fall out at a high rate, and putting more focus around that to be able to get just more kids playing. And the pros trying to do their part in this.
So certainly it seems like the opportunity is there for youth sports, for community organizers to potentially partner with teams. So I guess from a team perspective, Jordyn, what advice would you give somebody that's looking to reach out to the Denver Broncos or to another professional sports team when it comes to partnering for whatever reason they may want to partner?
Yeah, I think the first step is to actually reach out and to actually take that step to do so. Whether it's a contact to us or reaching out to someone that you meet at the grocery store or at a conference, just taking that first step, because whether that's the right person or not, they'll know who to connect you with and what opportunities may already exist or what opportunities could be cultivated as well.
And
if I could comment on that too, the point she said about what already exists, if you're starting to reach out to them, are you taking advantage of what's already there? So have you done your research? Because it's more than you think. Across, even the programs we're working with, some of them are new, but it's an array. MLB has been there forever. Their programs are free. So I think it speaks volume when you're already utilizing the programs that they have in place. If you now have a unique program that you want to be involved with, so do your research. You'd be shocked and surprised of some of the work and programs that they've had for years or new programs that are coming out year over year. So definitely take advantage of it, but make sure you're doing your research before you make that phone call.
And I would just add to that it's also important to leverage the website that the professional teams has. They list all of their initiatives, everything that they're doing. Sometimes they have contacts that you can reach out to. That's another great resource. Social media as well. Dive into what they're doing in the community and try to make those connection points for your organization. And when you have the opportunity, find that champion. All it takes is one champion within the organization to help you meet your mission of your organization. And also figure out ways of how to stand out and ask how you can add value to the organization. I think most times professional sports teams and leagues, they know that they're going to get a lot of folks that are asking them for certain things. But when you get that chance, ask them, what can I do for you? How can I continue to help support what you're doing in the community? And I think that will create a really impactful partnership where it's a two-way street and it's just not one-sided.
I grew up in a rural area, and I always felt growing up that even though we weren't that far away from a major city, it still felt like it. You know, for people that are in smaller communities, rural communities, is the opportunity still there for them to institute like an NFL flag or something like that? Are there opportunities for smaller and rural communities?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm also from a small community, middle of nowhere, Alabama, Dothan, Alabama, if you've ever heard of it. And I kind of use it as my incubator. And I say, hey, if I can do this in the middle of nowhere, Alabama, I can do it anywhere. And so, but the support that I've kind of seen from NFL and all the professional sports. We're going to launch NHL street hockey there. There's no ice. So it's given an opportunity to be able to do that. You spoke of the field and the project that you're doing. I'm doing it in my hometown. Thanks to the NFL Foundation. They have a grassroots grant program in building a field. We do the ribbon cut next month. Actually, and this is in Dothan, Alabama. There's no NFL team in that state. So to say that and the support, but that is still a market that is considered a club market. That market is the Falcons market. So the Falcons will be there with us when we do that ribbon cutting. So they do want to support the larger markets. You're in Colorado. Broncos, this is home for them, this entire state. And the fact that they're willing to go to Mexico, that just shows you that they're willing to go anywhere and everywhere to support the kids in those communities and give them that opportunity to play and be a part of the team. And also, fandom is a part of it. And they have their goals of what they want to see, and they want more kids playing their sport, and they don't want the financial means to be a barrier, and they try to put as many resources as they can to those programs. They're all big on affordability and making sure kids that get that opportunity, regardless of where they are, rural communities, urban communities, affluent communities, is getting those kids those opportunities to play and experience that Bronco feeling here in Colorado and other markets that they're in.
You know, I find it interesting. You talk about how Alabama is Falcons territory. I mean, certainly with the Denver Broncos, you're talking about where's the next closest team. Now the Raiders, but the Broncos cover not just Colorado. I would imagine Wyoming, Utah. I mean, the whole Rocky Mountain region. So the idea of just because you don't have a professional team next door does not mean that there isn't a desire from a professional team to partner with you.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the NFL is a little tricky when it comes to marketing territories, and it's a little trickier even more so on the East Coast.
Right. So ask, right? That's where the ask comes in.
Yeah, but I mean, there's definitely an interest. I mean, a couple of years ago, the Broncos did a tour all around Colorado. They visited small places like Del Norte and, went to Pueblo, which is several hours away from Denver, where they're, based out of. But there is a desire to reach fans. There's a desire to grow the fan base, and there's definitely a desire to reach those young fans as well.
So again, if you want to ask a question for our Q&A session here in a little bit, make sure you download the app and put this breakout session into the app, and then you can ask questions of our panelists here. Where do you see things going? All three of you, in your own way, need to look around corners, right? Need to look not just 2023 and 24, but beyond. Where do you think this is going, partnering with professional sports teams? Where's it going in the next few years, in your opinion?
I think it's going in the right direction. I think the more partnerships between local nonprofits and professional sports teams is only going to go up from here. As long as a great story is being told, the more you can tell that story, share your learnings, share those challenges with folks within the nonprofit youth sports development space, it only is going to benefit the next nonprofit, the next sports entity that is looking to make a deeper impact in their community.
Yeah, and I think we talk a lot about the next generation of fans in the NFL and specifically at the Broncos. And I think as these kids that are experiencing these programs and the work that you all are doing right now, as these kids are able to get a platform and speak about their experiences, they're also going to become our biggest advocates in continuing programs and expanding programs and continuing to make them better and safer for kids.
I would say you're going to continue to see more growth, not only within U.S. based, and we're talking about U.S. pro sports teams, but global expansion and evolvement within sport. And they're kind of here to stay. And I think alongside governing bodies and other respective entities like that, but these pros have now said, look, we got to step in and we got to do more. What can we do in lock arms, excuse me, to get more kids to play. Period. It's an issue, and it's psychological. I mean, kids who experience, and you think about these kids in sport, and we saw a drop off. So I think it's a heightened awareness around it, and also an alliance. I mean, we've been fortunate, but having all these pro sports, not only working with different organizations, but also starting to align and work together. So, it used to be, NFL is over here, NBA over here, but now it's more collaborative conversations to really get empowered and get behind kids playing sport in every category. I mean, I heard on the panel earlier from Olympians about specialization. I know pro sports believe in kids playing multiple sports. I did growing up. Coaching, officiating, how to treat a coach, getting and being the voice behind a lot of this messaging. And it's important coming from these professional sports, the teams, and its respective players, active and former, delivering these messages, because it speaks volumes to those parents that are out there and those organizations that are out there, boots on the ground within these communities. So I know they're adamant about it. I mean, you take the programs that we oversee, NHL Street, Junior NBA, to example, they're new. These are new programs. They didn't exist before. And they're adamant about growing these leagues into the hundreds of thousands of kids participating and getting that experience in communities. And I just think you're going to see more and more of that with the right initiatives to be put in place that can kind of scale and grow in whatever it takes to get more kids playing sport.
You talk about the junior NBA and NHL street hockey. If somebody didn't really have a preference, they just wanted to get a sport going, get kids active, would you say that those are, as opposed to maybe, sorry Jordyn, the NFL, like maybe is there a growth opportunity? Do you think that if you're willing to embrace hockey, which who doesn't? Hockey's the most amazing sport ever.
I agree.
I love hockey.
Yeah.
Is there a bigger opportunity there for somebody that maybe wants to get involved with the NHL as opposed to one of these other leagues that have been doing it for longer?
I think it's a great opportunity because, I mean, I didn't hold a hockey stick in my hand until I was an adult. I'm from Alabama. We don't have ice. It just wasn't. But that being said, I said, hey, I told my son we're getting ready to start street hockey. He said, Dad, this is cool. Mm-hmm. I'd never experienced this. So you start thinking of that. It is an opportunity. I mean, you think about, kids that have never been able to experience hockey now, but because of street, all I need is a parking lot, a basketball court, a tennis court. You're in your tennis shoes. So it's the NHL thinking about what more can we do? How can we evolve our game? If you were flag, we've been fortunate too to evolve in what you've seen. It has a shot to be in LA 28. Girls are now playing in high school. When I leave here, I'm going to the college championships for flag football for women. That's because the NFL stepped in and made a pathway for women to be able to play, same way I had a pathway in tackle. So to your point, yes, it is. I think it's this push and this evolvement and this uniqueness of coming in and being positively disruptive is what I would call it. Just it's getting more kids out there. So I see street hockey as my dark horse.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool what we've done and what NHL has done. And they've got outside of their standard. It's a very traditional sport, and they say, no, we want some rad-looking jerseys. We want it to look really cool because you're up against video games, nothing against video games. I love esports too, my son loves it. But we gotta get creative, collaborate, align, lock arms, to do whatever it is again, I keep saying, to get more kids to play sport.
How do we get Russell Wilson at our birthday party? On the topic of partnering with an athlete, you talk about in Baltimore that was initiated by a player. If somebody wants to, maybe because a professional athlete is from that area and they would really like to reach out to them, how do they go about? How much different is that process as opposed to reaching out to the team itself?
Yeah, it's kind of a completely different process. So each, as you guys know, like professional players, a lot of them have their own foundations. They're all represented by agents, and of course the NFLPA as well, the Players Association. So a lot of that with player-specific representation typically comes through the player themselves or someone within their circle. Typically the team level is more of the brand that you see. So the Broncos, the Ravens. But typically most of that runs through their individual foundations.
But the team can be a conduit to that, right?
Sure.
We're talking about making sure you ask. Don't just assume anything. So if somebody comes to you and says, we'd love to partner with a Broncos player, yeah, maybe it's not your department or this one or that one, but the team can help facilitate that contact.
Yeah, and most players are pretty open about the causes that they want to support, and a lot of them tend to be youth-focused, which is great because then any opportunity, maybe it is a partnership with a Boys and Girls Club or a YMCA or NFL flag, the team can help be that kind of middle person to help with that.
I would just add to that also by saying that sometimes professional athletes will just reach out to the organization because they have some type of relationship with them. And I think that's also a great way to kind of start to cultivate a relationship with the NFL team. For this example, if you don't have a relationship with the team, because sometimes athletes do things that they don't tell the staff. And the staff want to know what they're doing, their players are doing in the community so that they can highlight it and really tell their story. So that's also just something to keep in mind to make sure that you loop in the professional sports team, and that can be that window of opportunity for you.
Right, and it sounds like, creating that value, like maybe you're not the Boys and Girls Club, but you do something similar to what the Boys and Girls Club does, and that's the way you present yourself to the team or the athlete and say, yeah, it's not this, but we do very much the same things. It's helping them understand what you do as an organization, whether you're a large organization or a small one.
Exactly.
And I think it's also important to note that although Russell Wilson is a big name, it doesn't always take a big name like that. Kids idolize professional players, whether they're a rookie and they just got drafted or they're an alumni player and they played in a Super Bowl. Torrey Smith is an alumni of the league, and the impact that he's been able to have with his family and now this project, sometimes they're able to be a little bit more invested once they retire from the league.
And I know the Broncos have done a lot of really cool stuff with Caravan, where they bring alumni around. So there's always that. Yes, we have an ideal scenario and we want the best, but to your point, Jordyn, there are just so many different ways that you could do it. Denver Broncos cheerleaders, I know, are very active in the community, and I would imagine throughout the NFL, in Baltimore and other places, that's the case as well.
Yeah, I would just say, from a former player's perspective and even active, it always mattered to me personally being involved with kids in sports and going full circle, if you will. And keep in mind, if you have professional athletes from your respective communities, that's the same reason why I went home. I want to go back where it all started for me. The teams I played with professionally, where I played in college, all of those markets were something near and dear to me personally. But same way, we've been adamant up here talking about the pro teams and so forth. The players, both active and former, are the same way. So we do a lot of work actually with Russell Wilson. He reached out to me saying, I want to be involved with flag. Russell Wilson has an NFL flag league here in Colorado. He had it when he was in Seattle, and when it shifted, he shifted here, and several other players across sports. And so it is something that we being former and active players are adamant and love to working about kids. It's not a business or transactional when it comes from that, and you come from that respective sport. Reaching out to teams and then even clubs. I love working with Boys and Girls Club. I was a club kid. So there's a lot of professional athletes that were club kids. And so, knowing how to connect those dots, and same way, I say do your research on players. There's a lot of players that are doing a lot of good work and things that would be very open to collaborating with you, very similar to how we're talking about, working with teams. So.
And we've talked a lot about football, but I think it's really important to mention all of the other sports that are out there, the Nuggets, the Avalanche, the Switchbacks here in Colorado Springs. There's so many other teams that their players are wanting to be involved in their sports as well.
Question, I give you a hockey with Andrew Ference. Do you know that name?
Yes.
That's who I work with NHL Street Hockey, a legend in himself. And I think he's more excited in what he's doing now with street and working with kids and being on the ice himself as a player. So, and that means a lot to players, all of them, all walks of life, every sport. And to your point, like it matters more to us to give back to the game than playing it ourselves. And so when you can connect the dots and find players that feel that way, and it is a ton of them, they are more than willing to help and assist and be involved. Tori's another one. I do some work with Tori. As you said, he was one of where it started with the Boys and Girls Club with you all. So, but they're adamant about being in the community and working with kids.
Well, enough of me asking questions, although I will ask your questions to the panelists. Again, if you want to submit a question for Q&A, we'll go ahead and shift to that in the few minutes we have remaining. We'll start with this one, and we'll just toss these up to whoever wants to grab them. How would you use the Project Play messages and momentum in other cities to engage local sports teams, knowing many have their own community impact initiatives and big ideas that may miss the mark there?
I guess I can start. So I worked with Project Play back in 2016, and I helped to co-author the State of Play Baltimore report. So in terms of the work that we're doing with the Baltimore Ravens, that's going to be pivotal as we build this particular new club. We're going to really dive into the 10 plays and make sure that's embedded into the culture as we look at our sports opportunities, and as we look into how do we connect with coaches, how do we connect with just the overall community for the youth sports ecosystem that we're trying to create and will create with this new facility that's going to have a ton of interest of being able to have access to that field and that gym.
And it doesn't have to be an adversarial relationship, right? There's room for everybody doing the great work of helping kids out get into youth sports. This question is from Ryan. Great name, Ryan. What incentives can clubs and nonprofits provide to the pro sports teams in their area to facilitate the partnership? You guys talked about creating value. What does that look like in a more concrete way?
I think we've talked a little bit about fandom, and for a lot of professional sports teams, that is one of their goals or KPIs for the year is how can we grow our fandom? How can we cultivate the fans that we already have and deepen their avidity? But then also, yes, how can we reach new fans and convert them into Broncos fans? But I think that's the piece, right, is your organization may be providing the kids and the platform for a pro sports team to speak into. And although we may bring, the platform, you have to provide the kids, because oftentimes we don't have a program. I think our junior cheerleader program is one of the only programs that's actually run by a team. And so we're often working with third-party groups that are providing those kids that we can then help speak to.
I think this one, it would be great for you. Sometimes just attaching a logo does not equate to youth participation. How do you get your communities excited about the events or programs with professional teams? Great
question. And yeah, it's not just about the logo or teams and that the kids get to provide in our programs, but that is a carrot that kind of gets their attention, but it's the experience. And so we try through our marketing efforts to try to really tell that experience and what happens with it. And it's not just the logo. As I said, there's a greater value proposition coming from the pros, very similar, if not in partnership with governing bodies. So coaching, education, and resources, and training and development, and teaching to parents. And so there's a lot more value that comes with that, other than just say, hey, here's a Broncos jersey, go have fun and play some flag football. There's so much more behind it that comes with it. And so understanding those programs, and it's not just the program that I work with, but all of their programs usually has more value add than just the logo and the brand of that team. But it is a draw. Make no mistake about it. When you can put those programs in those communities, and those kids are getting that experience to be a part of the home team, if you will, it has its benefits.
We touched on this earlier, but I think it's worth expanding a little bit. One of the questions that came in is, if you're not Boys and Girls Club, we're not picking on you, Andre. We love what you do. But if you're not an immediately recognizable MPO, how do you get your name out there? How do you partner?
I'm glad you bring that up, and I'm going to use NFL flag here for this example. We'll touch probably 750,000 kids this year in that program, 1,800 plus leagues and counting. There are not all Boys and Girls Clubs and YMCAs, so we actually like the smaller programs just as much as well, because again, if you're smaller, you might have 100 kids, you might have 1,000 kids. Doesn't matter to us. These programs want to be anywhere and everywhere and partner with everybody. We want to be Switzerland in the space, as they say. So, because every kid deserves that opportunity. And if you've got a great program and you're working with youth, these pro sport initiatives and things that they're doing, they want to be a part of it in those communities, because there's reasons why you started that. As big as the Boys and Girls Club and YMCA is, and they do a phenomenal job, they're not everywhere. So it doesn't matter. You got to go where the kids are. Schools, if it's anybody within school-based programs, we also work with school-based programs, and the pros want to do that as well. Churches as well. So whatever type of program you're running, it matters to be able to do that. So it's not just the well-established and large nonprofits that they end up working with.
Is there a difference between if I am a school or I am a community organization when it comes to partnering with a professional team, Jordyn? Is there any difference in that process or anything?
Yeah, I think sometimes it can be a little tricky just based on, the protection and the privacy of a child and, their information. So I think sometimes it can be a little challenging without full school or district buy-in when it comes to partnering with schools. And typically the organizations, they are able to kind of bring the kids to you without any need for contact information or things like that, because they handle that, and tends to be a little more challenging with schools.
Yeah, I'll just add to that too. I mean, of course, you're going to have certain standards if that pro sport organization is attaching their name to it. Background check, safe sport, just making sure that high quality is there. That is vitally important as well. I mean, the safety and well-being of the kids, I don't think that comes as a shock to anybody in this room. They're going to want to see that and make sure and ensure that is happening.
We talked about rural communities, which is near and dear to our hearts, but so the teams want to be everywhere, right? So they want to be in the rural communities, but to demonstrate value and things like that, it's a little bit more difficult for rural. So Curtis is asking, is there anything additionally that you can do in a rural community to say, we may not have the numbers, we may not be able to serve as many kids, but I think there's a feeling where you're down in the pecking order. Even if there's a team that wants to partner with you, you may be down the pecking order a little bit when it comes to going up against a big city.
I would just add from my end, and I'm speaking on behalf of 4 Pro Sports, so there is no pecking order. Okay. Like they don't think about that with their existing programs. So, and it isn't a pecking order, or because you got 10 kids or 1,000, they're not looking at that. I mean, they get just as excited, in those markets, and it's tough sometimes. I know, we've been trying to work on some things in rural Georgia. I'm kind of just using that as an example. But it comes more down to the people. If you're asking that question, you're the kind of person that I would love to connect with, because it's important to have those organizations. And I know you said you're from a rural community. Who's down there? Who's that boot on the ground? That's what I'm always looking for. Who's going to be that league operator that facilitates these programs, the same way it's done in a major city. And so it's more about the execution and making sure we can be able to do it within any respective community.
We've talked about what the adults do. Let's talk about the kiddos. This question for you, Andre. What do you think that the kids want to get out of it, especially with all the kids you deal with at the Boys and Girls Club? What do they look for when, you know, the Baltimore Ravens are showing up? What does that look like? What do the kids want?
They just want to have fun, you know, and that's, you know, part of one of the, you know, principles of Project Play, just making sure that the youth is at the center of their experience. And that's what we try to do within all of our clubs, especially when we have the Ravens come. Just have fun and, you know, enjoy the moment that you're going to have with that particular player. They could care less which player that they're interacting with, but it's just those memories that they'll be able to take on as they continue to reach their full potential as a person.
Right, and we use all this to reinforce what Project Play is about, right? And to bring in a professional team entity, whether it's a player, whether it's the cheerleaders, no matter who it is, they want to come into these communities and reinforce you talked about specialization, and I don't know when specialization started, who came up with that idea, but in my line of work, that's not what college coaches want, that's not what professional coaches want, so they could be a great tool to come into these communities and teach these kids that don't specialize in one sport. Don't take it so seriously, have fun, right? And they could be a useful tool to help reinforce those kind of things to the kids, right?
And as you were talking about that, you know, I just was thinking, once this club is open, I can't wait until one NFL player comes and we put a basketball in their hand, they're trying to shoot some hoops with a club kid, or put a baseball in their hand, and just see just how much fun and joy that they're going to have because, you know, they probably haven't picked up a basketball or baseball or another, you know, ball other than a football in quite some time. So that's definitely something that will be very entertaining once we open up the club.
But they did have a basketball in their hand, a baseball in their hand when they were younger, that's the key there, right? Yeah. Well, we've run out of time. I wish we had more, but this was amazing. Thank you for all the questions that you guys sent in. One more time, let's hear it for our panelists, Andre Fountain, Jordyn Johnson, and Izell Reese. We're going to have, I believe, a little bit of a break here, allow you to decide where you're going next. Make sure you check out the app for that. Thank you so much for being a part of this breakout session, and enjoy the rest of the Project Play Summit, 10 years. Thank you.